10 years ago, I was the Omega everyone doted on, and Johnny Vance was the scholarship kid who had to beg me for money. 10 years later, my family was bankrupt, and Johnny had become a rich and powerful alpha. To repay my father's kindness, he married me, swallowing his disgust. He didn't love me. I knew that, but I loved him, and no one knew that. Until one day, Johnny, let's get a divorce. He just sneered. In your dreams, Leo. I originally got into showbiz just for fun, but then my family went bankrupt. To make money, I agreed to fake a relationship for publicity with my co-star. The new reality show we were filming was set on a luxury cruise ship. In front of the cameras, my alpha co-star leaned in close, whispering suggestively in my ear. His cloying pheromones filled my nose, and I turned my head away in disgust. Suddenly, my eyes met with a man who was walking gracefully out of a conference room. I never expected to run into Johnny here. I instinctively stood up straight, putting some distance between myself and my co-star. The female Omega guests on the set had clearly seen him too. They couldn't help but cover their mics and start gossiping excitedly. Is that him? The legendary new richest man? He's even more handsome in person than in his pictures on the rich list. He's not even 30 and he's still single, I hear. A total diamond bachelor. Ah, he's looking over here. The women quickly fixed their hair and makeup, puffed out their chests, and struck poses to show off their charming curves and elegant smiles. But Johnny just gave them a fleeting glance. His eyes rested on my face for no more than 2 seconds before he turned away indifferently and walked toward the dining area with his business partners. As if he didn't even know me. The guests kept chattering, not ready to let it go. Who do you think Mr. Vance was looking at just now? I pulled my gaze back and took a sip of my wine. Me. A few snickers answered me. These female colleagues clearly didn't take me seriously. In a society where Omegas are rare, gentle and delicate, female Omegas are generally considered a better match for alphas and are more likely to earn the affection of the elite. Male Omegas, who are physically stronger and less fertile, are not only fewer in number, but their pheromones are also far less attractive to alphas. No one believed that a top-tier business mogul like Johnny, so capable and powerful, would ever be interested in a broke, washed-up male Omega like me. But the truth was, for the past year, I had been his legally recognized husband. It's just that Johnny never acknowledged it. And so our marriage would forever be a secret. As I was lost in thought, a hot hand wrapped around my waist. It was Blake, my PR stunt boyfriend. He leaned in close, putting on a show for the cameras. I like my Omegas like Leo, he purred. Tougher, more fun. Don't have to worry about breaking them. Even for a publicity stunt, that was way over the line. A wave of nausea hit me, and I subtly pushed him away. I gave the cameraman a nod. Excuse me, I need to use the restroom. Blake wouldn't let it go. His hand slid down and he squeezed my ass, suggesting, together? The arrogance and desire in his eyes were unmistakable. A year ago, when we first worked on a show together, I was still the famous heir to a pharmaceutical empire. Back then, he was all respect and flattery. But as filming wrapped up, news of my family's bankruptcy spread. Blake changed completely, his gaze growing more contemptuous and lewd by the day. Some foolish alphas will always believe that mediocre, weak Omegas are born to be playthings for the powerful. But I didn't give him the satisfaction. As soon as we were out of the camera's range, I shook his hand off with even more arrogance than he had shown me. Get away from me. His expression instantly darkened. I couldn't be bothered with him. I walked past the loud stage show on the deck and went up the same stairs Johnny had just used. The upper level was much quieter. I ducked into the restroom near the restaurant and saw Johnny, meticulously washing his hands at the sink. I glanced around. No one else was there. I leaned against the doorframe, watching him, and took the initiative to explain. That Alpha and I are just co-workers. There's nothing else between us. Johnny methodically lathered his hands with soap, not even bothering to look up. Your personal life is none of my business. I let out a frustrated TSK, his indifference getting under my skin. The contract requires me to fake a romance with him for the promotional period, so there's going to be a lot of physical contact. I moved closer to him. You don't mind? Johnny pulled a paper towel to dry his hands and finally looked at me. If you don't want to work, you can stay home and do nothing. I can afford to support you. His words hit a nerve, and my voice instantly turned sharp. Johnny, Have you been waiting all this time for a chance to get back at me? To make me come to you for money, so you can treat me the way I used to treat you? To insult and trample all over me, like some dog you keep around? Seeing my face flushed with anger, Johnny raised an eyebrow and smiled. So you do know how awful you were. The air left my lungs. Then, just as quickly, his smile vanished, replaced by that same cold, dismissive mask. But you're overthinking it. I don't have time for petty games with you. As if even looking at me was a waste of his time, he sidestepped me and walked out the door. He stopped about 6 feet away and turned back. And I've warned you before, don't get too close to me. Do you have a short memory? After Johnny left, the faint smell of fire and gunpowder still lingered in the air. The stronger an alpha's constitution, the more potent their pheromones, sometimes radiating from them uncontrollably, a constant display of their dominant privilege. I took a deep breath, but my lungs burned. Johnny despised me, and honestly, I had brought it all on myself. Starting when I was 16, my father became his benefactor. Johnny came from a poor family. His parents had died early, and he had a younger brother to care for. The day before he was about to drop out of school to work, my dad received his file from the school, saw his potential, and decided to sponsor his tuition and living expenses. There was nothing wrong with that arrangement. Unfortunately for him, before he could even get the first payment, I found out about it. Because I was born with a silver spoon, and because I was a rare and fragile Omega, I was coddled by my father my whole life. I was the center of everyone's universe, and I grew up spoiled and arrogant. So when my father wouldn't stop praising how brilliant and smart Johnny was while sighing at me for only caring about having fun, I developed an instant hostility toward this alpha I had never even met. So, I took the sponsorship money from the finance department without permission and went to find Johnny's home. The first time I saw him, my heart gave an uncontrollable, violent lurch. He was only a year older than me, but he was already tall, with the lean build of a teenager and deep, striking features. Even though he was just wearing a faded, worn-out set of old clothes and standing in a cramped, run-down apartment building, he was still undeniably, dazzlingly attractive. "Who are you looking for?" Johnny asked, his voice cold. As his gaze swept over me, I snapped back to reality. I shoved him aside with my shoulder and barged into his home without any manners. "You're the poor student the CEO of Phoenix Pharma is sponsoring?" "Yeah." Johnny frowned, looking like he wanted to throw me out. I plopped down on his sofa and crossed my legs. "I'm his son." Johnny froze. I placed the bank card from my pocket on the coffee table and lifted my chin. "This has your entire senior year's tuition and living expenses, plus support for your little brother." But I pressed my finger on the card, a malicious glint in my eye. "If you want this money, you have to do what I say." Johnny stood across from me, looking down at me with dark, heavy eyes. His expression was blank, but I could feel his anger radiating off him. "Take it back," he said, and without another word, he reached out, yanked me off the sofa, and started marching me toward the door. "I don't need your charity." I stumbled, caught off guard. He was so much taller and stronger than me, I couldn't fight back at all. Just as we reached the door, his 10-year-old brother stumbled out of the bedroom, rubbing his eyes. "Bro, what are you guys doing?" An idea struck me. I twisted around and grabbed Johnny's wrist. "Hey, are you just going to let your own brother starve?" Johnny looked down, no longer hiding the fury in his eyes. For a second, I was scared, but I pushed through it. "You're only 16. You haven't even graduated high school. The only jobs you can get are manual labor, and you'll work yourself to death for pennies. Your brother will go hungry and cold with you. Who knows if you can even scrape together enough for his tuition? Is he just supposed to drop out of school this young? Besides, your brother hasn't had his second presentation yet, has he?" I glanced at the kid, who was much skinnier than others his age, and guessed he's probably going to be an Omega too. And because of their biology, Omegas need a ton of suppressants growing up. If he goes into heat and loses control, he'll be in serious danger. Due to the technological patents, suppressants were extremely expensive, far beyond what a poor family could afford. I stared at Johnny, challenging him. "If you're willing to sacrifice your own future for your brother, why can't you give up that pathetic little bit of pride for him?" His grip on my arm tightened until it was excruciating. But I gritted my teeth and said nothing, meeting his glare in silence. That was the first time I smelled the scent of fire and gunpowder on him. Intense, violent, and aggressively intimidating. He was furious. But after a long moment, the fire in his eyes slowly died down. Johnny let go of my arm, gave me one last heavy, cold look, and said, "What do you want me to do?" I rubbed my bruised wrist, feeling as triumphant and arrogant as a conquering general. I kicked off my leather shoes, strode into his home, and flopped onto his clean bed. I beckoned to him, "Come here and rub my feet." When my dad found out about it later, he, who had never said a harsh word to me, gave me a fierce lecture and even raised his hand to slap me. Though he couldn't bring himself to actually do it, I still blamed the whole thing on Johnny. And so, my torment of him escalated. In high school, Johnny and I went to the same school. I was 2 years behind him. I would intentionally find excuses to bother him. If my shoelace came untied, I'd run to his building and yell for him to come down. Then, in front of everyone, I'd make him kneel on one knee and tie my shoes for me. Knowing he had monthly exams the next day, I'd drag him to an off-campus bar to drink for me, taking shot after shot from my scumbag friends until he was barely conscious. Late at night, after everyone had left, Johnny would be slumped over the bar, sick. I'd light a cigarette, pat his face with a smirk, and when he looked up, I'd blow a smoke ring right in his face. "Hey," I'd say, my eyes curving into a gleeful smile. "You know why I torture you?" Johnny would squint, his gaze cold and thin. I hated that look of his, so detached and indifferent, as if I were just a monkey jumping around, desperate for attention. I grabbed his ear and shouted, "Because I hate you. Johnny, don't think that just because my dad likes you, you've gone from a peasant to a prince and are suddenly better than everyone. You're nothing but a servant my family bought. Got it?" I thought he would get angry, but instead Johnny laughed. He pushed himself up from the bar, his tall frame completely enveloping me, and slowly leaned in. His breath, laced with alcohol, brushed against my ear. "You're so childish," he said, "and pathetic." His dark, deep eyes stared into mine, filled with a stinging disdain and contempt. Growing up, I was surrounded by people who fawned over me. No one had ever dared to mock me to my face. I flew into a rage, completely losing it. I threw my arms around Johnny's neck. As if to vent all my frustration, I jumped up and bit his earlobe, so hard I almost tore through it. As blood welled up, Johnny shoved me to the ground, clutching his ear in fury. "Leo, you're a real spoiled asshole." My tailbone hit the floor hard, and my palms were scraped raw. "That's right. At least I have someone to spoil me. Do you?" The moment the words left my mouth, Johnny's face changed dramatically. His parents had recently died in an accident. My words were like ripping open his rawest wound and pouring salt on it. I regretted it instantly, but I was too proud to apologize. Johnny was silent for a long time. Finally, he gave me a look of pure disgust and turned to leave. That look hit my heart like a 1,000-pound hammer. The moment the glass door swung shut, tears started streaming down my face. I didn't mean to hit him where it hurt. He called me an asshole first. And besides, how could he look at me like that? From the very beginning, Johnny and I were destined for conflict. Now, my family was bankrupt, and he, with his brilliant technical skills and business acumen, had acquired my family's pharmaceutical group. Our roles were completely reversed. Even though Johnny was grateful for my father's support back then and had honored his dying wish by marrying me, a mediocre male Omega, he despised me from the bottom of his heart. We slept in separate rooms after the wedding, and he hadn't touched me once. This was all what I deserved. But still, I clutched my chest. Why did it hurt so much? I splashed some cold water on my face and slowly walked out of the restroom, surprised to see Blake waiting outside. Maybe it was my imagination, but the scent of his pheromones seemed much stronger. "One of the guests isn't feeling well, so they've canceled tonight's filming." I nodded. Just as I was about to walk past him, a sharp pain shot through the back of my neck. I clapped a hand to my neck in shock and looked at the syringe in Blake's hand. His eyes were bloodshot, his breathing heavy. My rut came early. "Do-me a favor." Our pheromones weren't compatible, so he'd used an aphrodisiac to force it. My limbs quickly went numb, my head spun, and I stumbled away, trying to run in the direction Johnny had gone. "Help, Johnny," my legs were like jelly. I only managed 2 steps before Blake caught me, held me down, and bit the back of my neck. Under the drug's influence, omega pheromones flooded out of me, driving the alpha insane. My silk shirt ripped. Blake started dragging me toward the restroom. In the struggle, I grabbed a decorative potted plant by the door, lifted it with all my strength and smashed it over his head. Blood poured from Blake's forehead. He let go, and I scrambled to my feet, running for my life. Johnny! Johnny! I chanted his name like a machine. My mind was completely blank otherwise. The VIP area of the cruise ship was eerily quiet. The thick carpet absorbed the sound of footsteps and also seemed to suck the strength from my legs. Just before I passed out, a familiar figure finally appeared in my vision, sprinting frantically toward me. I crawled toward him, my clothes in tatters, and grabbed his pant leg with my bloody hands. Help me, please. Hot, so hot. Another needle pierced my neck, injecting a cool liquid. But the fire didn't subside. Every inch of my flesh and bone felt like it was burning. I couldn't help but cry out, but a hand clamped over my mouth, pressing me into the bed. Don't move. The breathing beside my ear was heavy and strained. The usual coldness in his voice melted away by a few degrees. The air was thick with the intoxicating scent of orchids, struggling to mix with the acrid smell of gunpowder, but they wouldn't blend. As time passed, the pain intensified, like a living orchid being thrown into a raging fire. The torture felt endless, yet a strange sense of joy began to rise within me. My eyelids were too heavy to open, but I knew who was beside me. Years ago, the first and only time I had ever been intimate with someone had been just as painful and violent. After that disastrous fight with Johnny at the bar, I was too embarrassed to see him for a while. Before I knew it, he had graduated high school. In college, Johnny could support himself with scholarships and no longer needed our family's sponsorship. But my dad, seeing his talent for research, made an exception and allowed him to study in our company's labs. I couldn't see him at school anymore, but I heard his name constantly at home. The Johnny my dad talked about was brilliant, dazzling, a natural talent who could effortlessly keep up with R&D and even propose innovative new ideas. Given time, he was destined to become a rising star in the pharmaceutical world. During these conversations, my father's gaze would drift over to me. Though he never said it outright, I had a growing suspicion. My father had given up on me, his mediocre son. He wanted to groom the limitless potential of Johnny to be his successor. And conveniently, we were an alpha and an omega, close in age, a decent match. An image of that cold but handsome face flashed in my mind. I should have hated him. I should have loudly protested before my father made up his mind and shut the idea down. But I didn't. Instead, my heart felt itchy. After 3 years apart, I barged into Johnny's home once again.
I'm turning 18.
A bunch of people are coming to my party at my house. You should come too. It had been a while. Johnny's frame had filled out, his features more chiseled, but his cold expression was exactly the same.
Sorry, I'm busy.
He was wearing an apron, cooking for his brother, not sparing me a single glance. Every time I was around him, my pride and arrogance crumbled. Furious, I plopped down in a chair and started fighting his brother for food. I'm not leaving until you agree. Johnny frowned, exasperated, but his gentlemanly manners kept him from throwing me out. Instead, he went back to the kitchen to cook 2 more dishes. His brother, however, was not happy. The 13-year-old had shot up, no longer a sprout but a sapling. He had even presented as an alpha. He snatched my chopsticks away, refusing to let me eat the food Johnny had made. You bully my brother. I don't like you. I fought with him. What do you know, you little brat? Theo shot back angrily. You bit him. He bled so much, and you never even said sorry. I was speechless. Being called out for my past sins by a kid left me with no defense. My face flushed as I tried to bluff. Do you know who I am? The little punk snorted. Humph, you're just a rude, ill-mannered brat. I slammed my hands on the table and shot to my feet. I was trembling with anger, but I couldn't find a single word to refute him. That little face, which looked so much like Johnny's, stared back at me defiantly. Please leave, and stop bothering my brother. You're not welcome here. Tears suddenly welled up, swimming in my eyes. I knew I wasn't a likable person, but no one had ever rejected me so bluntly. Hearing the commotion, Johnny turned off the stove and came out of the kitchen. His eyes darted between me and his brother. What's wrong? What's all the noise about? His brother was a little afraid of him and shrank back, saying nothing. Johnny turned to me, and when he saw the tears on my face, he was visibly stunned. You? I shoved him aside and ran out, wiping my eyes. I don't know what I liked about Johnny, or when I started liking him. But after being thrown out of that rundown apartment building, my chest ached with a heavy, sinking feeling, like a lead weight. I bought a few bottles of hard liquor from a nearby shop. I was too embarrassed to go back up, but I wasn't willing to just leave. So I crouched in the long, dark alley below his building and drank my sorrows away. As luck would have it, it started to drizzle, the light rain slowly turning into a downpour. Damn it! I was soaked to the bone, which only made me want to cry more. Suddenly, a shadow fell over me. Johnny was standing there, looking down at the empty bottles by the wall. His voice was puzzled. Why are you still here? I was feeling sorry for myself, but my mouth was as stubborn as ever. None of your business. You own this alley? I'll sit where I want. You won't come to my birthday, you won't let me eat, and now even me squatting on the ground bothers you? Do you hate me that much? Well, Johnny, I'm not going to let you win. I mumbled and grumbled, trying to stand up, but a searing pain shot through my foot, and I yelped and squatted back down. Johnny knelt down in front of me. What's wrong? My lip trembled. My foot's asleep, I whined. Johnny let out a helpless, exasperated laugh. He tucked his umbrella into my hand and pointed to his own back. Get on. I'll carry you. I'm a difficult person. I don't need it, I said stubbornly. But he grabbed my arm. Stop arguing. I have to get you home so I can get back to my brother. Right? His brother was always more important. I reluctantly climbed onto his back. Johnny's body was warm and solid, the complete opposite of his usual cold demeanor. He started carrying me toward the main road to find a taxi. As we reached the end of the alley, Johnny suddenly spoke. I apologize on Theo's behalf. He's just a kid and doesn't know what he's saying. Don't take it to heart. That was it. I could handle his coldness, but this sudden softness undid me. The tears started flowing again, uncontrollably. He wasn't wrong, though. The liquor was burning in my stomach. I felt sick, and my head was getting fuzzy.
I'm sorry, Johnny.
The man carrying me paused. Sorry for what? He asked in a low voice. With my eyes closed, I let the alcohol loosen my tongue and poured out years of guilt. I shouldn't have bitten your ear, and I shouldn't have said such horrible things. I was always picking fights with you because I was afraid you'd steal my dad's attention and affection. I lost my mom a long time ago. If my dad stopped paying attention to me too, I don't know what I'd do. Johnny was silent for a long time before he finally murmured, I know. I felt hot, sweating all over. I pressed my face against his neck to cool down. Don't be mad at me anymore. I'm not a brat. No, you're not. I was delirious with fever. Acting on pure instinct, I kissed his earlobe, licking the scar I had made all those years ago. Johnny, I think I might like you. The body beneath me jolted. Are you running a fever? The words had barely left his mouth when a rich, intoxicating scent of orchids erupted from my skin, quickly enveloping us both. Johnny froze completely. Leo, you're at 18 years old. Without any warning, I went into my first heat. The sweet scent of an omega's pheromones attracted nearby alphas. The area wasn't safe to begin with, and Johnny didn't dare let me go at a time like this. He ran with me on his back to his apartment building, and quickly locked the doors and windows. I lay on his bed, dizzy, as if I were floating on a cloud, the ceiling spinning above me. Johnny's voice was more urgent than usual as he instructed his brother. Take all the money we have, go buy suppressants. Buy as many as you can. Hurry! His brother ran out. Johnny came over to me and wiped my sweat with a cool, damp towel. Hang in there. Theo will be back soon, he trailed off. I snatched the towel from him and threw it aside, burying my head in his chest. Tell him to come back. Don't waste the money. I was in agony, but I still remembered that Johnny was poor. I didn't want to make things worse for him. I looked up at him, my eyes shimmering with a layer of tears brought on by the fever. Johnny, you helped me. From there, the memories are a painful, chaotic blur. I just remember that Johnny was unwilling. He kept pushing me away, but I kept clinging to him. No omega ever forced an alpha. I was the first. No wonder those alphas didn't like male omegas. Not soft enough, not docile enough. I was like a rabid dog, madly devouring Johnny's pheromones. He became furious. The smell of gunpowder around him grew stronger and stronger, like a raging fire about to burn me to ashes. His pheromones were too intense. Breathing them in seared my lungs and organs. But I liked it. Years later, wrapped around him, my arms tightening, I still felt a fatal pleasure in that near-death agony. But when the sun came up, the beautiful dream shattered. When I woke up, the sheets beside me were cold. Just like years ago, when I had forced Johnny to mark me, he had saved me. But his disgust for me had only grown. Johnny stood a few feet away, fully dressed, unwilling to even get close. He gave me an order, his face grim. I've called the on-site doctor. They'll be here in a minute to wash out the mark. I touched the swollen, throbbing bite mark on my neck and answered numbly. Okay. He had only touched me twice, and both times, he made sure to have every trace of his pheromones cleansed from my body afterward. He was terrified of getting me pregnant, which would tie us together even more inextricably. It didn't matter anymore. Our pheromones weren't compatible anyway. Leaving the mark would just make me miserable. When the doctor arrived, they brought me some food. After I ate, they used the newest cleansing solution. Johnny had developed the main formula. He really was a genius. This time, the cleaning process was almost painless. Not like that first time at 18, when washing out the mark nearly killed me. After changing and covering the marks all over my body, I checked the time and went downstairs to rejoin the show's crew. As I passed a conference room, I heard an angry voice from inside. Who found this manufacturer? The slightest deviation in the drug's composition can have serious consequences. Don't they know that? This new drug isn't just ineffective, it's actually making the rejection worse. Who the hell did the quality control on this? It took a lot to make an Iceman like Johnny that furious. Curious, I peeked through the crack in the door. The entire R&D team was silent. Then, a female Omega stood up, walked over to Johnny, and gently patted his shoulder, using her pheromones to subtly soothe his anger. It's okay. This drug is brand new and hasn't gone through rigorous clinical trials. It was never meant for the market yet. It's normal for it to not meet expectations. Johnny, don't be so hard on yourself. Her pheromones, a damp scent of fresh grass, were calming and peaceful, like a gentle morning rain. The rage radiating from Johnny gradually subsided, and the scent of gunpowder retreated. He calmed down and sat back. Let's continue the meeting. The female Omega withdrew her hand and returned to her seat. As she turned, her long hair swung around, and I saw her face clearly. It was Johnny's first love. After that accident happened, Johnny started avoiding me. He took a leave of absence from my dad and even stopped going to the company labs. So I had to swallow my pride, buy a big bag of snacks, and go stake out his home. Thanks to the food, his brother didn't kick me out. Hey kid, when is your brother coming home? Theo kept his head down, gobbling up a small cake. Probably late. He's busy preparing for the innovation competition. That's tough, I sighed. Is he alone? Is he remembering to eat? Theo leaned in conspiratorially, a strange light in his eyes. He's not alone. There's a pretty older sister on his team. A jolt of panic shot through me. I didn't even know what I was panicking about. The next thing I knew, I was standing outside the lab at Johnny's university, panting. I leaned against the wall, trying to catch my breath, my back soaked with sweat. Just then, Johnny appeared. He walked down the hall from the other end, a petite girl right beside him. They were laughing and talking, clearly enjoying their conversation. Johnny looked relaxed, a gentle smile on his lips. But the moment he saw me, the smile vanished. He stopped, keeping a safe distance between us. Leo? What are you doing here? I didn't answer, my eyes glued to the girl. Next to him, she had silky long hair, a delicate figure, and that soft, gentle air unique to female Omegas. Especially the faint scent of her pheromones, damp and cool, with a natural healing quality that was a perfect match for Johnny's fiery, explosive ones. Remembering the shy, strange expression on his brother's face when he mentioned her, I was almost certain. This girl was special to Johnny. My heart hammered in my chest, and I could barely breathe. Noticing my hostile glare, Johnny subtly moved to stand in front of the girl and said to her softly, "Chloe, you head back to the lab first. I'll handle this." The girl nodded, giving me a complicated look before she left. In the empty, quiet hallway, I looked at Johnny. Who is she? Just a student from a lower year on my competition team. Johnny clearly had no intention of reporting his personal life to me, nor did he have much patience. "It's getting dark. I'll take you home." He couldn't even spare a few minutes to talk to me. I rushed forward and grabbed him by the collar. "Johnny, we've already done it. Are you trying to deny it?" Johnny looked down, his eyes dark and silent. I stared at him in disbelief. "Are you really that kind of person? You just wanted a freebie, and you're not going to take any responsibility?" Johnny gently pushed my hand away and took a step back. "The mark has been cleaned," he said in a low voice. He said, "You're still whole. You can find someone better." Such a perfect, textbook rejection. "Someone better?" I demanded, my eyes red. "Johnny, is it because you already have someone in your heart?" He stood there, not too close, not too far, just watching me. He didn't speak, but he didn't deny it either. The answer was clear. I turned my back to him, straightening my spine, refusing to let him see my tears again. "Fine. That suits me perfectly. A low-life peasant like you could never deserve me anyway. I've always been someone whose words are tougher than they are. I say the cruelest things, then cry myself to sleep at night." Finally, unable to bear it anymore, I threw away my shame and confessed my secret feelings to my dad. "Don't you think Johnny has a lot of potential? Our family is so powerful, it shouldn't be hard to win him over, right?" Phoenix Pharma had a monopoly on suppressants. As long as people needed to control their pheromones, my family's company would thrive. Whoever married me would become the next heir to the pharmaceutical empire. I didn't believe anyone could resist that temptation. But to my surprise, my dad just let out a long sigh. "Johnny isn't coming back. He started his own studio to develop new types of suppressants." I froze. My dad looked at me meaningfully. "Son, some things aren't meant to be. Don't force it." To help me move on, my dad introduced me to several high-quality alphas. They were all attentive and willing to humble themselves to please me. But the more I spent time with others, the more I missed the cold but capable Johnny. He never looked up to me because of my privileged background. And likewise, when he was kind to me, it was never because of my status. I still couldn't let him go. I secretly got in touch with his brother to get updates on Johnny. Theo, munching on the snacks I brought him, generously sold out his brother. His studio is expanding into a company. It's growing so fast, and it's all thanks to Chloe. When he talked about Chloe, the brat's attitude was the complete opposite of how he treated me. It was Chloe this and Chloe that, and it made my chest ache. I crushed the beer can in my hand. "Is your brother going to marry her?"
Theo suddenly clam up.
"Who said that?" I shot him a look. "You like Chloe so much, but have you ever thought that once she becomes your sister-in-law, your brother won't belong just to you anymore?" Theo went silent, his face turning ugly. The teenager had already learned to use his pheromones as a threat. The hot, sunny scent made my mouth dry. I got up to leave, pinching his cheek on my way out. "Listen here, kid. Your brother is destined to be snatched up by someone. But that someone can only be me." I had a whole series of plans to win him back. But before I could even start one, Johnny's company declared war on Phoenix Pharma. His R&D team had broken through the technological barriers for suppressants, drastically lowering production costs, and quickly ramped up mass production across the country. My dad tried to block him at every turn, but he couldn't stop the rise of this new pharmaceutical star. Johnny personally led the research. In just a few short years, he launched several revolutionary new drugs that transformed the industry. And Phoenix Pharma, once the leader, began to decline, unable to keep up with the times. My dad had worked himself to the bone for years, and his health finally gave out. He got sick quickly. Realizing his days were numbered, he gave up the pointless fight. He invited Johnny to our home for one last negotiation. I don't know what they talked about exactly, but when Johnny came out of my dad's study, Phoenix was his and so was I. My dad must have used his past kindness as leverage, forcing the man he respected most to take his good-for-nothing son off his hands. If it weren't for that, Johnny would have probably ended up with Chloe long ago. Their pheromones were so compatible, and their intellect was evenly matched. Half the credit for Johnny's breakthroughs belonged to Chloe. I quietly stepped back from the crack in the door, a wave of desolation washing over me. How could I possibly compete? Without the halo of my father's legacy, I was nothing. I rubbed my face, forcing a smile as I went back to filming the show. Blake was wearing a hat to cover the bandage on his head. He shot me a cold look but didn't dare mention our fight from the night before, continuing to interact with me on camera as if nothing had happened. I had to admire his acting skills. Unlike me, I felt like throwing up every time I looked at him. After finally getting through the day and leaving the cruise ship with the other guests, I got a call from Johnny. "I'm sending someone to pick you up. Don't have any more contact with Blake." I asked him, "Do you want to leave with me?" There was a pause on the other end. I heard a soft female voice call his name. "Johnny, could you come here for a second?" Johnny immediately shut me down. "I still have work to do. Don't wait for me." It was already pitch black outside. A single alpha and a single omega working together? Did he think I was an idiot? I hung up on him, my tone harsh. "Go to your work. Stop telling me what to do." But then he actually called right back. "Leo, do you have any idea how dangerous it is to be alone with an alpha who wants you?" I shot back. "And it's not dangerous for you to be with the omega you've been dreaming about?" Johnny didn't seem to get it. "What are you talking about?" I took a deep, angry breath. "I'm saying if you dare cheat on me, I'll cheat on you first." I hung up and turned off my phone before he could say another word. The sea breeze was cool, but my mind was a mess. I would never actually mess around with someone else just to spite Johnny. After getting off the boat and saying goodbye to the crew, I put on my mask and hat and drove myself to the airport. Theo was flying back today for a vacation. His brother might not care, but I remembered. I picked up my poor brother-in-law, who was stranded late at night without a ride, and lifted my chin. "See, little punk? Now you know how great your brother-in-law is." Huh? But the little brat was ungrateful. As soon as he got in the car, he pulled out his phone and started questioning me. "You're pretty famous lately. Who's this guy all over you?" The show I did with Blake last year was a big hit, which is why they wanted us to fake a relationship. I just didn't expect Theo to be watching it. I turned it back on him. "Shouldn't you be studying abroad instead of watching TV all day? You're slacking. I'm going to tell your brother." Theo's eyes widened. "You have the nerve to mention my brother? How could you do this to him?" I couldn't help but laugh. "You think your brother is some saint? For all you know, he's cozying up with his sweet little omega under the moonlight right now. That's bullshit. Go ahead. Call him right now and see if he's not with Chloe in the middle of the night." "Theo Scott? What's so strange about that? My brother's been going crazy trying to find a cure for your rejection reaction. Chloe's the head of R&D, so he's always making her pull all-nighters. He actually started to dial. You're right, that's not cool. You can't overwork people like that. I'm gonna give him a piece of my mind." "Wait, what did you just say?" I pulled the car over and grabbed his phone. "What rejection reaction?" Theo looked at me, stunned. "You seriously don't know?" He shook his head in disbelief. "You've got to be kidding me. You two have been married for a year. You haven't noticed that you have a severe reaction to my brother's pheromones? That it hurts you to even smell them? Huh? It's a medical condition?" I was dumbfounded, as if I'd been struck by lightning. Theo was just as shocked. "No way, Leo. I know you're not the sharpest tool in the shed, but I didn't think you were this dense. You and my brother have been together like a million times. You really never noticed something was wrong? Your brother avoids me like the plague. How was I supposed to notice anything?" My face flushed as I tried to save face. "I've never been with anyone else, so how would I know what's normal? It's all your brother's fault. Why didn't he tell me?" "Theo Scott? A rich kid like you has always looked down on poor people like us. If you knew you were allergic to his pheromones, my brother would never have had a chance to marry you in this lifetime." The boomerang I'd thrown in a fit of anger years ago had finally come flying back to hit me. My mind was reeling, but my mouth was still stubborn. Good. It would have saved him the trouble of breaking up the tragic love story between him and Chloe. Theo got angry. "What does this have to do with Chloe? She's my girlfriend." "Huh?" I was shocked. "When did this happen? How come I never heard about it?" My brother-in-law's face turned red. "Well, I haven't actually asked her out yet." Theo looked at me seriously, his expression earnest. "Leo, I know you can be a drama queen, but just stop for a second. my brother has had it really rough these past few years. After you couldn't get suppressants during your first heat, he started researching cheaper, more accessible ones. You said poor people like us didn't deserve you, so my brother worked himself to the bone, day and night, to build his company, hoping that one day you'd see him as an equal. The younger brother sighed on his brother's behalf. Even if you don't love him that much, can't you at least be a little nicer to him, considering how hard he's tried? I was speechless for a long time, but, I can't see any sign that he loves me. Because my brother doesn't dare, Theo said softly. He knows very well that his love is torture for you. That conversation hit me like a ton of bricks. For the rest of the drive, Theo wouldn't even let me drive, afraid I'd be too distracted and crash into a median. He dropped me off downstairs, then tactfully made his exit. Leo, you and my brother need to have a real talk tonight. I walked up the stairs in silence, mentally rehearsing what I would say when I saw Johnny. Before, I didn't know how he felt, and I was terrified he would leave me. But now, oh, you clever bastard. I figured you out. Time to hit him with something big. I rubbed my hands together excitedly, but when I flipped on the lights, there was someone sitting on the sofa. Gah! I jumped. You're back? I thought you were working on the cruise ship with Miss Chloe? Johnny stared at the phone in his hand, ignoring my comment, that same cold mask on his face. I was laughing on the inside, but I kept my face straight, walked over to him, and cleared my throat. Johnny, let's get a divorce. The man on the sofa shot his head up. Why? I decided to test him. I've been thinking, and Blake isn't so bad. At least he's interested in me. I wouldn't have to live like a widow. Johnny's face went pale. He threw his phone at me. He's a cheater and a pig who sleeps around with anything that moves. He'd get it up for a sow, and that's who you're interested in? Leo, you must be really desperate. Did a guy like him even know how to swear? I widened my eyes and looked at the explosive trending topics on his phone. In just a few hours, all of Blake's dirty laundry had been aired out online, completely destroying his career. You did this? Johnny didn't deny it. His voice was heavy. If you find your soulmate, I'll wish you well. But it can't be Blake. You'd wish me well? I moved closer to him. If I really left you, you wouldn't care? Johnny took a step back, his eyes darting away in a panic, refusing to meet my gaze. Stay away from me. Don't come any closer. I deliberately took 2 quick steps and threw myself into his arms. The fire seared my skin again. I took a deep breath of his potent pheromones, enduring the pain as I looked up at him. Johnny, I'm not afraid of the pain. He tried to pull away frantically, but I held onto his waist even tighter. I'm only afraid of you pushing me away. Johnny froze, motionless for a long moment. Leo, have you lost your mind? I tilted my head up and kissed the corner of his mouth. Yes, I've lost my mind. That's why I get so jealous I say things I don't mean. I held his face in my hands, reverently, and apologized again for my mistake all those years ago. Johnny, in my heart, you were never a low-life peasant. You are my destiny. From the first moment I saw him, with the sun shining on that young man, his handsome, strong, and reserved figure was etched into my soul. I didn't realize it, but I had already claimed him as my own. Every time I bullied him, it was just to prove that I still had him. Johnny was flustered, his breathing unsteady. His pheromones flared violently before he forced them back down, a sheen of sweat breaking out on his forehead. I reached up and unbuttoned his shirt, rubbing my cheek against his. Don't, Johnny stopped me. The treatment hasn't been perfected yet. You can't handle it. But I can't wait anymore. I held my lover tightly. Burn me to the ground. Johnny's extra when my parents passed away. My brother was still very young. At my wit's end, I met a benefactor. The CEO of the pharmaceutical giant Phoenix Pharma was willing to sponsor me, but he had one condition: one day, I would have to marry his son and join the Sutton family. I had never liked anyone before, so I thought marrying one person was the same as marrying any other. I agreed. But soon after, the first time I saw Leo Sutton, I regretted it. He was still young, but he already possessed a captivating beauty. The moment his beautiful, misty eyes met mine, it was like an arrow shot straight through my heart, piercing my entire life. You're the poor student my dad is sponsoring? The noble, arrogant young man walked into my home, his eyes scanning the damp, dilapidated old house with disgust. He was like a pearl fallen into the mud, and the look he gave me was full of contempt and loathing.
Yeah.
I answered, feeling a profound sense of shame, feeling unworthy for the first time in my life. I had overestimated myself. I didn't deserve him. I never should have so rashly agreed to Mr. Sutton's request. So when Leo brought me the bank card on his father's behalf, I refused. I don't need it. Don't give me charity, I thought. Don't let me entertain such foolish dreams. But to my surprise, though Leo was arrogant, he was also very perceptive. He keenly noticed that my brother was likely to present as an Omega, and that raising such a fragile and sensitive person required a great deal of money. Leo hated me, but he still generously offered the sponsorship. In return, he just wanted me to rub his feet. That was the most humiliating thing he could think of. I chuckled to myself. As I held his fair, delicate feet, I had to fight the overwhelming urge to place a light kiss on his instep. He didn't understand yet what an Omega's torment meant to their future partner. It was the prince's whip on his knight. It was the master's reward for his servant. I never expected Leo to be surrounded by so many shady friends. The desire in those other alphas' eyes was blatant, but he was completely oblivious. He was always running off to drink with them, and he had such a low tolerance. 2 drinks, and his neck and chest would be flushed a deep crimson. I couldn't help but snatch his glass and down his drink for him, but he seemed unhappy about it. After the crowd dispersed, he blew smoke in my face with a cold expression. Don't dream of turning from a peasant into a prince. You're just something my family bought. I hate you. It was so blunt, it ripped away my last shred of self-deception. An intense feeling of despair, amplified by the alcohol, washed over me. I said something awful to him. Leo bit me in a rage. After I fled, clutching my bleeding face, I closed my eyes in the dark night. This was probably the end for us. Fine. It was easier to admit I wasn't worthy. Things didn't turn out as badly as I expected. After graduation, I studied pharmaceutical development. Mr. Sutton still valued me and carefully mentored me. I did everything I could to better myself, to be a useful person to the company. That way, when Mr. Sutton was in a good mood, he would share stories about his family. And I could hear news about him. My little Omega, the one I thought about constantly, were you doing okay? Unexpectedly, Leo came to invite me to his coming-of-age party. But the first thing he did was list a bunch of his scummy friends' names. Then he reluctantly added, you come too. Mr. Sutton must have forced him. He had to come and find me. I took a deep breath, not wanting to cause him more trouble.
Sorry, I'm busy.
Even as I said it, I started efficiently washing vegetables. Mr. Sutton had told me his son didn't like greasy food. He wouldn't eat a thing if there was even a drop too much oil. I wanted him to taste my cooking. I wanted him to stay a little longer. But before the food was even on the table, that little brat Theo started a fight with him. And he made Leo cry. Looking into those red, teary eyes, my heart seized. After giving my brother a stern talking to, I went out to find him. It was already dark, and Leo was squatting in an alley, drinking cheap liquor. While he was disoriented, I gave in to my selfish desires and pulled him onto my back. His soft body rested against mine, a complete and total dependence. My soul was so happy it felt like it could float away. I even started hearing things. I could have sworn I heard Leo whisper in my ear, I like you. Are you running a fever? As soon as I asked, I realized something was wrong. He was in heat. It was chaos. The first time in my life I was completely helpless. My brother ran out to buy suppressants, but our neighborhood was too remote, and the supply was out. I told Theo to take a taxi to a pharmacy farther away, but Leo couldn't hold on. Wisps of orchid-scented pheromones rose from his body, intoxicating and seductive. I had no self-control around him. In an instant, my own pheromones surged. He begged me for help, his angelic face covered in tears. My gaze shifted, and I slowly moved toward the back of his neck. Sooner or later, I would be his. So, fulfilling my duties as a partner a little early should be okay, right? But that one bite nearly killed him. The moment my pheromones entered his glands, Leo began to cry out in agony, as if he were being tortured. His body was burning hot, and he couldn't stop shaking. I was terrified. I hurriedly dressed him, swallowed my pride, and called Mr. Sutton for help. Leo was taken to the hospital. He had a high fever for 3 days and 3 nights and underwent an excruciatingly painful mark cleansing procedure. The lab results came back. My pheromone compatibility with Leo was 0. Moreover, he was allergic to my pheromones with a strong rejection reaction. Just being near me made him uncomfortable. Mr. Sutton held the report, silent for a long time. I watched him, helpless, a growing dread in my heart. Finally, he walked over to me, patted my shoulder, and sighed. Our agreement is now void. He said I could still stay at Phoenix Pharma, but I was never to go near Leo again. I didn't stay, to see him, to hear him, but to never be able to have him. That was the cruelest torture imaginable. I chose to start my own company. This tragedy was all because of suppressants, so I was determined to break through the technological barriers. I found a student, Chloe, who was also interested. In the research, I buried myself in my work, numbing the pain with science through countless sleepless nights and failures, until Leo came to find me. I remembered the doctor's warning and didn't dare get close to him. Leo asked me, "Do you already have someone you like in your heart?" I looked at him, the bitterness unspeakable. "Yes." But he turned and walked away. "You low-life peasant, you could never deserve me." I really couldn't let it go. How could I let go of the person I had fallen for at first sight? I never wanted to be enemies with the Suttons, but Mr. Sutton was furious about my rise and constantly applied pressure, obstructing my progress. I fought desperately to save my company, stressed and overwhelmed every single day. During the years I lost contact with Leo, I saw him on screen. He had grown into an elegant, captivating man, shining like a pearl, a household name. I had fought my way to the top of the mountain, but I still couldn't touch the moon in the sky. My dark obsession twisted me. In the end, I survived. But Mr. Sutton went bankrupt. The scent of ink filled the study, only making my own motives seem more malicious. "Mr. Sutton, right now only I can save Phoenix Pharma. But I have one condition." I ruthlessly pressured the dying old man. "Give me your son in marriage." I swore to him that I would develop a drug to cure the rejection reaction. The study door opened. I smiled as I met Leo's anxious gaze and said softly, "You're mine." But I didn't make it public. I knew I wasn't the right person for him. I wanted to leave him a way out. For a whole year, I worked tirelessly to keep my promise. Chloe, the head of the anti-allergy drug development, had somehow been roped in by my brother. She was always texting with that little brat who knows about what. I was anxious about our progress and personally supervised her, making her work overtime every day. Even when a partner invited us to a celebration on a cruise ship, I brought the entire R&D team along for more meetings. I knew the employees all called me a slave driver behind my back, but I couldn't care less. I hadn't dared to touch Leo since we got married, and he was growing more and more dissatisfied, with rumors constantly swirling about him and his co-stars. I was afraid he would leave me, but I was even more afraid he would end up with the wrong person. I never thought he would get into trouble right under my nose. The man who harassed him was lying in a pool of blood. I gave the bastard another hard kick and had someone drag him away. I couldn't kill him, but that scumbag's career was over. I picked up the nearly unconscious Leo and, in my panic, gave him the newly developed drug. Unfortunately, the manufacturer had made a mistake in the formula, and the rejection reaction was even stronger. Looking at Leo's pained expression, for the first time, I thought about giving up. I had forced him to stay with me. Was it really the right thing to do? The doctor for the mark cleansing arrived. I had him bring breakfast to Leo, and then I hid myself away. I didn't know how to face any of this. No one wants to live in constant pain. I was afraid to hear Leo's final judgment. But that night, the inevitable finally came. "Johnny, let's get a divorce." My heart stopped beating. My face must have looked like a corpse. Why? I had told myself I would let him go, that I would wish him well. I couldn't do any of it. Is it because of Blake? He's a total scumbag. Suddenly, Leo smiled and walked closer. "You're panicking?" I stumbled back. "Don't come near me." Leo pressed forward. "Johnny, do you know what I'm most afraid of?" The scent of orchids enveloped me, and his soft face buried itself in my neck. "I'm not afraid of the pain. I'm only afraid of you pushing me away." He breathed in my pheromones, his face contorted in pain, but he spoke softly for a long, long time. It turned out that the 10 years I thought were filled with my own secret, sinister intentions, in his eyes, were a completely different story. That celestial boy, raised with so much love and care, had fallen for a mortal like me. And from then on, the bright moon fell into the dust, plagued by anxiety and fear. There was no way to repay him. I held my lover tightly, and I called Chloe and told her to work through the night. The treatment for the rejection reaction had to be ready as soon as possible. I couldn't wait another second. The day the new drug was launched, I held a press conference. Leo, wearing a mask and a hat, sat in the audience, smiling at me. We had tested it ourselves. The results were better than expected. The pain of our union was completely gone, replaced by a pleasure we had never known before. For a long time, people have been constrained by their pheromones. Mating often felt less like an emotional bond and more like a submission to instinct. That's why we invented suppressants. On the other hand, when pheromone compatibility is too low, even with the one you love most, a touch can become a form of torture. So, I held up a bottle of the new anti-allergy drug. The goal of this research was singular, to allow everyone to break free from the prisons of their bodies and love freely. Inside the clear glass bottle, an orange-red liquid, like fire, swirled, slowly releasing the faint scent of orchids. I allowed myself one indulgence and named the drug Orchid Flame. It was a secret that belonged only to me and Leo. Even though our pheromones said we were impossible, I loved him.